What actually happens to precious metals when a recession hits? Well, you'll probably be surprised to find out what actually does happen, and I'm going to explain what history has told us, and when the next recession does eventually hit us, how can you be ready for what might happen this time around? I'm going to explain everything in this video, so let's break it all down. Want to win 100 ounces of American Silver Eagles completely free? Well, JM Bullion is giving away 5 full tubes of 100 coins packed in a custom waterproof Pelican case. There is no purchase necessary, and the giveaway ends September 11th of this year. And if you want to get in on this opportunity, click the link in the description below to enter for your chance to win. And just to be clear, JM Bullion is not sponsoring this channel in any sort of way. This is me just wanting to pass this opportunity along to help you guys out. So don't miss out on this. Click the link in the description and enter for your chance to win 100 ounces of free silver. Hi everybody, and welcome back to yet another video. So today I want to go over what it might look like for us stackers when the next recession hits. While there may or may not be one in the near distant future, there are many indicators that do explain when one might occur. And while we're not going to go down that road in this video, I just want to go over what may or what has happened to precious metals during previous ones. And as someone who hasn't been in a recession with precious metals, I think this would be a good topic to visit ahead of time so that we can be aware of what to expect. Now, I've been in recessions before, but not with precious metals in my portfolio. So I do have some information from an article that's a few years old, but the data is still pretty relevant. So I want to start at the top and define what a recession is and where we currently stand today. So what is a recession? Well, a recession, by the most common definition, is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Now, there are other ways that people define it, such as that negative GDP alongside with high unemployment, decline in consumer spending, and lower production output. So there are different ways that people define it, but I think the most common way and the most accepted way that it's defined is that 2 consecutive negative GDP that I mentioned earlier. And given the way that it's calculated, it is a little bit of a lagging indicator. So we don't really know we're officially in one until about 6 months has passed. So it's very possible that we could be in one today. And I say that because if we look at the GDP for the US last quarter, it was down negative 0.5% for Q1 in 2025. And if we're going by that definition of 2 consecutive negative GDP, depending on the data that is set to release on July 30th later this month, we could very well be in a technical recession if GDP is negative for Q2. So while we will have to wait for that data to come out, what is the consensus of where we might be going into Q3? Well, there is some good news with this in the estimations of what the GDP will be for Q2. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, they are estimating that Q2 will have a positive 2.9% growth, which would avoid any definition of a recession that I mentioned earlier. And if that's the case, then we don't have to worry about it. But let's say that we do end up with a negative GDP for Q2. What will a recession look like in the world of precious metals? Because again, I want to reiterate that I'm not going to explain what causes a recession or what it will look like in general. I want to specifically show the performance of the precious metals and what they have done historically in past recessions. And as I stated earlier, there is an article from goldsilver.com, and they have a pretty cool information or data about the performance of it all. And honestly, I almost want to read it word for word because it easily explains what happens. But for the sake of sounding too monotone, I'm just going to go ahead and highlight the graphs and some other important data. But like I said, this article is a little bit older. It's a couple years old, but the historical data is what we're really going after here. So let's go over what each metal has done since the 1970s. Okay, so let's start with gold. And since the 1970s, there have been 8 recessions, and the winner of all precious metals, as you would expect, was gold. Gold actually has had an average of almost 13% growth during a recession. And now I'm going to show you a little graph here, and you can see that there has been 2 times where gold has gone down, but all the other times it has gone up. And again, if you combine all those percentages, on average, it's about a 13% positive growth. And the cool thing is it didn't go down as much as the S&P 500 did. And that makes sense because when you think about it, a fear in the markets usually make investors jump ship, and they reallocate the money that they had in stocks and they put it into other places like gold, which is the natural refuge when uncertainty hits, right? So you kind of got the answer as to who the winner is, or which is the best metal to hold during a recession, and it's gold. And you'll always be better off with that in your stack. But let's look at silver and how it's performed during those same recessions. And silver is typically weak. As you can see here on this same graph, it had almost the opposite performance that gold did. And on average, silver has gone down by 5.8%, only being up twice. Now, as I stated before, people will flock to gold when times get rough. Silver doesn't usually get that same attention, and even more so because it's an industrial metal. When economic times get tough and production slow down, demand for things go with it. And that industrial metal doesn't get utilized as often as it did prior. So it makes sense for that reason that the prices will go down during a recession. And just real quick, we'll look at platinum and palladium, and as you can see, they are just as bad. Platinum has gone down on average about almost 16%, and palladium goes down on average about 17%. So these are definitely one of the worst 2 to own in your stack during a recession. So now that you know that gold is the best option during a recession, what should you do? Well, the logical thing would be to assume to just go all in on gold and you'll never lose out. And in my opinion, it's kind of correct, right? I mean, gold is king, and I don't disagree with that, but simply having gold to avoid a recession is kind of questionable, but at the same time, it is the right move to do. But I think having both is great, and they each have their own purpose. So if you can stack gold or accumulate some before the next recession, then you'll do just fine in that area. But as for silver, a lot of us stack it, and we're going to technically see some losses on this performance end of things. But again, it's only a loss or a gain if you sell. And we stack silver for different reasons. But again, the message here is this: if you're going into a recession, gold will outperform, at least historically speaking. Silver, platinum, and palladium are going to take a hit, also historically speaking. So recessions can be a lot for most people, but it'll also create opportunities for those who keep their cool. The next dip in silver could come from a recession, and that would be the right time to buy. Using the dips to build your stack, not panicking, and staying disciplined and stoic during the chaotic times will allow you to win. So with that being said, guys, let me know what you think about precious metals and recessions history. Were you surprised by any of them? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye, guys.